Okay, joining us now is Democratic Senator Doug Jones, who will be sworn in as an impeachment juror later today. Good morning, Senator. It's a busy day for
Yes, it
you
is, Allison.
and in the
Yes,
news
it is.
business. Have you had a chance to listen to that entire 10 minutes of Anderson Cooper's interview with Lev Parnas?
Not the entire 10 minutes. I tried to pick up on that interview and the one that was done last night on MSNBC as well. There's a lot to unpack there, Allison, that we've got to be looking at going forward.
Is this information relevant to the Senate impeachment trial?
Well, of course it's relevant, and I think it puts Ambassador Yovanovitch's testimony in an interesting context. There for a while, it was questionable whether that had any real relevance. Now we see that at least there is testimony, or there's witnesses out there who puts it in a context of the fact that her removal was part of a scheme to get information about the Ukrainian business, Burisma, and the Bidens. And that is just another piece of evidence that goes to the overall chronology in this that I think the Senate has to take a really hard look at.
How about those text messages that we saw yesterday that Republican congressional candidate from Connecticut was apparently watching her every move and sending these text messages back to Lev Parnas and suggesting, it seems, in code that he share immediately her whereabouts with Rudy Giuliani? I mean, what is the Senate interested in hearing about that?
You know, I think that is really for some criminal investigators, both in Ukraine and the Justice Department. If any of that happened, it should be investigated thoroughly. I'm not sure that is something that we need to get into right now. I think that if we focus on her removal as the ambassador and the specific issues that we've got in hand, let the Justice Department, let the Department of State, let the Ukrainian officials, because this is implicating Ukrainian law as well, let them look into that, and let's focus on the real things that we've got in front of us.
Yeah, by the way, they just announced that Ukraine, not our own Department of Justice, Ukraine just announced that they are launching an investigation into whether or not she was threatened or surveilled. But let's move on to what Lev Parnas says. He is saying this morning for the first time in the most fulsome way that everything he did was at the instruction of Rudy Giuliani. He believes that President Trump was directly connected and was talking to Rudy Giuliani about this. And according to Lev Parnas, this was all about the 2020 reelection. Corruption was never mentioned. And so that brings us, Senator, look, you've been on the record as saying you want to hear from witnesses. You think it's relevant. Of course, this brings us to your Republican colleagues. Do you think that this will compel them, more of them, to want to hear from witnesses?
Well, I certainly hope so. I mean, we have been saying all along, I have said from the very beginning of this, that we need to hear from the witnesses that were in the room, that were part of this, all of this action. We need to hear from the people with firsthand information. And the fact that this is coming out now needs to be tested. You know, people have to look at Les Parnas with a degree of skepticism. I get that. But the way to test his credibility is with live testimony subject to cross-examination. One of the things that's often forgotten in this is that the administration criticized the House for not being a part of this their investigation in the House, not having the president's lawyers there. Well, in the Senate trial, the president will have his counsel there, will have his lawyers there, and all of these potential witnesses will be subject to cross-examination. And that's where the real truth gets in, is through the cross-examination. Every lawyer will tell you it is the cross-examination of live testimony in which you can really drill down on the truth. And that's an important part of this for the president to also be able to do this, not just in the media and the court of public opinion, but in a trial and get his counsel right there in the middle of it.
And do you have any sense this morning, given this Lev Parnas interview, and I'm talking about behind the scenes, in the hallways, do you have any sense from your Republican colleagues that something has changed and they're more open to that now?
I don't know. You know, this all started breaking late yesterday. We weren't really in the halls too much yesterday afternoon. We're going to have a really serious proceeding today. We're going to have the articles of impeachment of a president of the United States read on the floor of the Senate. The Chief Justice of the United States is going to be escorted in, sworn to be the presiding officer, and then all 100 senators will raise their hand and swear to do impartial justice. This is a very, very serious and somber proceeding. And so I think once we get into that trial mode, once we take those oaths, I think people are going to really focus this on their duty as not only senators, but their duty, that the oath that they take to do fair and impartial justice. And so I think you'll hear more in the coming days.
One of your colleagues, Republican Senator Susan Collins of Maine, told our Manu Raju, well, why didn't this come out sooner? Isn't that a little bit strange? Do you understand? Do you blame the House for not having been able to get access to this when a judge just granted Lev Parnas the ability to hand it over to Congress?
Well, certainly, I think that it's a legitimate question about that. But, you know, I've been on both sides of a courtroom when it comes to big cases like this. And we have to put this in a huge context. It's not just the fact that the judge held this. Parnas was first arrested like October 9th or 10th. They're in the middle of this investigation. Number one, remember his first lawyer was John Dowd, who was also the president's former lawyer. Dowd was representing both of these defendants. So there has to be some time in a criminal proceeding for a lawyer to make sure that where their client stands. Ultimately, Parnas got a different lawyer. That lawyer has to get up to speed. Once these documents, once these text messages came, they've got to make a decision. That lawyer is looking with his client to determine what the story is, talking to him, challenging him, and whether or not he needs to come forward to help his case. So I'm not at all shocked that this has taken 90 days or so in a huge criminal case in the Southern District of New York for a witness to be able to publicly turn over documents and give their side of the story, at least at this point. I think that is par for the course. I'm glad it has happened because it just proves that we have so much more to this case that is out there that hasn't been done, in part because the administration has blocked witnesses and blocked the receipt of documents.
Senator Doug Jones, we really appreciate you taking time this morning to come on New Day and to give us your perspective on all of this. We'll talk again soon.
All right, Allison. Thank you.
Thank you.